what I know, and this has been for the past, I would say 3-4 years, is that let me see if I can where I hold on. Where is the file where I can share it? Right here. All right. Can you see it, Julia?
Yes, we can. I was just going to say that.
Right.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. So we want to talk about the psychology of Sturge-Weber and what can we do better. First of all, every time that I talk about Sturge-Weber and mental health, everyone, even if you go to the journals, there's plenty information about, the cardiology part, the ophthalmology part, the skin part, dermatology, hematology, ophthalmology, pediatrics, but there's nothing about mental health. So the current treatment model for Sturge-Weber is not connected with mental health. And that is a huge, huge problem. When I've been talking to some of you, they have shared stories like there's one person who said, I'm fine losing an eye, but I'm not okay losing my personality and my self-esteem. And that it's unbelievable. When you are willing to lose an eye, but you're not willing to lose your identity, your self-esteem, your friends, that tells you how important is mental health in this condition. So my question was, what if we add mental health treatment into Sturge-Weber? And I talk about the clinical case of Natalie, which I have the permission. And this clinical case, I'm pretty sure is going to be very, very similar to some of your stories, where, Natalie was born in 2001, born and raised in Chicago, full term, and she started to have seizures at womb. It was diagnosed rapidly with Sturge-Weber and Porn-Weinstein in the right side. At the age of 6 months, he had the first seizure, and after that, she was having between 3 to 4 times per month. We have a weakness in her left side of the body, arms and legs, and a lot of myoclonic jerks occurring up to 100 times a day. Then, at the age of 2-3 years old, traveled from Michigan to Boston, a lot of seizure activity, at least 6 times per month. And to make the story, short, it was recommended the hyperhysterectomy, which in a lot of people ask me, doctor, what do we need to do? Can you recommend this? Should we do it? Should we don't do it? And this is a very, very difficult decision from the parents, because when they recommend that, usually the kids are pretty young. And I know, talking with some colleagues, they used to recommend that procedure, and now they're having even second thoughts about it. But from the psychological point of view, just be a little bit empathetic with the kid and with the mom or the father, and making these kind of decisions, it completely changes the quality of life of the family, because it adds a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, worry, and probably family discord. Because if we make the right decision, you'll be thankful, thank you for taking the lead. But if we make the wrong decision, then usually one of the parents is going to blame the other parent, and that's going to end probably in a divorce or even worse. But as you can tell, this is just one example of many in the Sturge-Weber archives, I will say. Obviously, the parents said, no, we're not going to do it. We want to risk it. And I start seeing Natalie when she was 16 and a half. We did a very comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation, and the results were not surprising. She was, diagnosed with intellectual abilities at the bottom of the low average range. with prominent difficulties in most verbal and visual tasks. And they recommended to treat the social anxiety. And this is very, very, dangerous label, but those are the standards of the neuropsych evaluations when she was diagnosed with not likely to function independently in the foreseeable future. When you're a parent and you have a child, when you have this label from doctors, we're basically saying she won't be able to be a full adult and she will be able to be independent in the future. That brings a massive, massive emotional toll to the family and to the kid, because they know something's wrong, but they cannot verbalize it. And if you try to go to a traditional social worker or a traditional psychologist, they won't know, because in mental health, we're not trained to understand the neurocognitive aspects of the psychiatric illnesses. We just trained to manage the emotional component. So when you try to get, you try to ask for help and you have a lot of rejections, that also brings a lot of pain and the sense of hopelessness into the situation. Well, as I said, what if we add a mental health with a particular tweak, where we want to use mental health as the basis, but we want to use case management, psychotherapy, family therapy, medication management, neurocognitive treatment, and social cognitive treatment. So if we work on this model, what are the repercussions with neurology, with dermatology, ophthalmology, pediatrics, et cetera, et cetera? So what is this integrative approach? First, and this is something that I want to highlight it heavily, when the families have some resources and they go to neuropsychologists or they go to psychologists in different parts of the world state, what I have found is that the diagnosis is usually wrong, because they tend to blame everything to Sturge-Weber. Oh, this, I want to call it Pedro. Pedro is pretty sad and he's anxious. Oh, it's because of Sturge-Weber. Or Pedro can write and has, problems switching the B for the D. Oh, it's the Sturge-Weber. No. Sturge-Weber is one thing. Yes, it might affect things, but have you asked Pedro about how many friends he has in school? And if the answer is none, then it's not the Sturge-Weber. He might be clinically depressed, with understandably. If you ask about Pedro, how do you feel when you go out with mom and dad? And Pedro says, well, they don't get along, and all the time they're trying to tell me what to do, and there's a lot of fights. Well, Pedro, it's not the Sturge-Weber, the all the anxiety that it's causing. It's real. It's the family dynamics, right? So I have the privilege to talk to some of the members, some of the family members, and it's very, very impressive to say, no, there is a legitimate, emotional component here, and there is a legitimate family component here, but that has nothing to do with Sturge-Weber. And just clarifying the diagnosis brings a lot of relief, because if you say this is the Sturge-Weber and we have depression and we do have tools for depression, guess what? Pedro will feel better. Pedro will be able to have a better day, a better week. That has nothing to do with the Sturge-Weber. Now, in this integrative approach, we also use the neurocognition, social cognition, emotional regulation, and interpersonal therapy that I will talk about briefly. Neurocognition, what does that mean? Well, we always start with a good acronym, which you can see on orange, and the acronym is SMART, which is speed, memory, attention, reasoning, tact, and synthesis. And we also need to talk about affect, which is the decrease expression, increase arousal, and impair regulation. So something that has been very, very useful for members and members' family is to understand how the brain works. When I met with Natalie, I remember she telling me she didn't have any clue about how the brain works and what are the functions of the right hemisphere versus the left hemisphere, the frontal lobe versus the occipital lobe. But I remember, Natalie, I said, where does it hurt? When you're trying to do this exercise, where do you think is the problem? And she was using her hands. It was like, it's just right here, right here. No here, no here, right here. And guess what? She was right. She was right. It was a problem with executive functioning, and executive functioning is just right here in the frontal lobe, just right in the forehead. So explaining how the brain works and what are the specific functions of the areas of the brain, it's very productive. It's like the basic psychoeducation that helps the clinicians and the family members to set the foundations, right? So I remember with Natalie having some problems with impulsivity. Well, where do you think impulsivity is coming from? Well, it's coming from the frontal lobe, to the right, to the left. And when I was explaining, well, it's more the left. Well, what if we do activities to go related to the right and see if we can regulate the impulsivity? Right? Then I have used like every single discipline in medicine. We have used now digital tools. I've been using this software called Sagacity, which is a computerized neurocognitive training. And as you can tell, there is approximately 20 different modules, and each module is specialized in targeting one part of an area of the brain. In this case, we can pick the reaction time that is going to help us to assess not only the reaction time, but also the impulsivity and the brief attention. We also can go to divided attention, auditory math, vigilance or sustained attention, etc., etc. This is an example of the reaction time. This is a real results. So right now we're training for 500 milliseconds, which is half a second, and we're training to react in 2 seconds, and we have visual and auditory tools. So if you see this dark area is the 0 to half millisecond, and every response around here is correct, but you can have late, early. If we have an NR, that means that the response was around more than 2.5 seconds, which is very, very, very slow. And then with this exercise, we're able to tell Pedro, in this case, how quickly he's responding and what is this importance to do this, which is a small attention, brief attention. What are the benefits of doing these exercises? I mean, unless you are in a Formula One, or if you're a pilot or a racer, this is very, very important because you have to have a good reaction time. But in reality, if you want to drive or you're walking around the street, and if you don't put a lot of attention to the street lights, half a second can, delaying to respond half a second on the brakes can cause an accident. Not paying attention to a class, you will have, for half a second, you might miss, an important concept in the class. And also, this is another really good way to control the impulsivity. What is the social cognition? Social cognition, and I'm putting this photo with my dear friends, Natalie on the right and Aiden on the left. This is in the Sturge-Weber in Texas a year ago. What is important to social cognition? In simple terms, that is the skill that we need to have in order to make, to have friends, to retain those friends, and to get along with any social interaction. For that, during this treatment, we talk about theory of mind. We talk about improving the social skills. What does that mean? We deal with criticism. We teach how to elaborate when we talk. We also talk about motivational account, which basically explains your rationale why you're doing this. Because I don't know if you have the experience, but for Pedro, in this case, my imaginary client, sometimes Pedro will say, and I don't want pizza anymore. So, well, I mean, I understand that you don't want pizza anymore, but what is the context? And it's not intuitive for some of them. And sometimes you need to explain, well, why don't you tell me the context? Give me the motivational account. Oh, I forgot to tell you that I was invited to my grandparents, my grandpa's birthday, and we were singing happy birthday, and there was pizza, and there was a cake, and I ate too much pizza, and that's why I don't want more pizza. Oh, thank you for giving me the context. With the context, it's easy to have connections, social connections. Without the context, it's very, very simple, easy to misinterpret what is the message and what is happening. Then we have something called emotional temperature taking. For some of the participants or some of the clients, is very difficult to understand the emotions, and that can lead to a lot of conflicts with parents. I told you to do this, but then I don't know what are you talking about, and it's really, really difficult to navigate emotions. They interpret it differently, and then you can imagine the huge mess. Now, this is very important. One thing is the emotional temperature taking, like not understanding the emotions of the father, and the other one is to have a mom and a dad and an adolescent. Even if your cognitive functions are intact, adolescents will tend to misinterpret the communication. Now, did that have something to do with Sturge-Weber? No, that has something to do to be an adolescent, a preteen, right? And that's why it's very important to understand the differences between what is related to the Sturge-Weber and what is just completely normal development. So in this case, as that seems in bad mood, which is true. It's reading the nonverbal cues correctly. The other one is not a good day to ask my dad about getting a new video game. I mean, if you can read the bad the negative emotions that the father is presenting, then I will say, don't ask, read that. Perspective taking has to do with, he must have a bad day at home, trying to put yourself in the shoes of the other. And if you can do that, it's very easy to have a better flow communication or a better interaction. We talk about emotional regulation a lot because what we know, and this is from a lot of research on psychiatry. If we have a lot of stress, and the stress is in the y-axis and physical and emotional vulnerability on the right axis, what we know is that higher stress, higher the vulnerability, acute symptoms. And in this model, when I said acute symptoms, it's very hard to predict if you're going to exhibit anxiety, you're going to have panic attack, or OCD-like symptoms, or sometimes it can come with so much stress that you will be so vulnerable to have a seizure. That's why we always work on having low stress and low vulnerability. What are the things that can protect the vulnerability, the emotional vulnerability? Take your medication, do some exercise, have some friends, breathing exercises, just to regulate that part. Interpersonal psychotherapy is key in this integration of mental health because it helps to support, in this case, Natalie, it was very helpful to support her journey through the treatment. We can help to improve the self-esteem, to normalizing life events, and to tackle anxiety, depression, panic attacks, identity crisis, and support independency to be a successful adult. So what happens when we put all these spices into the blender and give it to Natalie? Well, Natalie was able to complete high school, attended community college. It was interrupted the community college because of the COVID. She has been seizures free for almost 3.5 years, even more. Better self-image, better self-esteem. She has been employed for almost 3 years now, full time with benefits. She's been more independent. Now she's able to use public transportation to go to and from work, staying at home by her own. That was a big issue from the family. That remember that the first diagnosis, unable to be independent. Now, if the family wants to travel to another state, Natalie can be by herself without any panic attacks and do her chores and go to work responsibly, cooking for herself, things like that. And as last week, she's probably 95% done with the driving classes, and she's on her way to be an independent and safe driver. But this is just the qualitative part. From the quantitative part, we did a very comprehensive neurocognitive evaluation, where on the left is the 2018, on the right and green is the 2022. And in terms of the verbal comprehension, it's pretty much the same. But look at the perceptual reasoning. She had a percentile in the 8th percentile. Now she's in the 50. Working memory, 18 to the 23rd. Processing speed, the 3rd to the 23rd. And basically the full IQ went from the low or below average to average. And we're using the standardized, the WISE. As I said, and not only that, the people who assess, they were completely blind. They didn't know what was the magic recipe, which basically was to do a comprehensive mental health approach to the Sturge-Weber. They did the neuropsych evaluation in Detroit, and their diagnosis was intact neurocognitive functioning across areas of global cognition, which basically within normal limits, all the way from impaired, below average, we don't know if she's going to be independent, to within normal limits. It's a huge, huge jump. And yes, there's still mild impairments in social and practical skills. Here, I can blame that all the work that we have done with Natalie has been remote. So it's very hard to have the social cognition over the Zoom unless we have more, unless we do the treatment in a group setting. So what's next, or what are we doing now? Well, since August 2022, we created a mental health task force for Sturge-Weber, for patients and family. Now we're kind of like disseminating the importance that the Sturge-Weber requires a multidisciplinary approach, and they need to add mental health. We have a parent support group that, which basically we all have between 12 to 15 parents. We meet once every 2 months for 1 hour, 1.5 hours, but I know that they stay for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And the beautiful part of that is like they all share similar things, not because of the Sturge-Weber, but they share the struggles, the strengths, the resiliency, how they cope. And for parents who their kids are now 18, 19, they are like the role models for the parents who just find out that their 1-year-old have the Sturge-Weber, and seeing the 18-year-old like Natalie, 21 now, having a full job, working, going to school, it's truly inspirational. And we do have older members in their 45s, 60s, 80s, where they even have families. So when you put an adolescent, 16 or 17, that they never date anyone, that they have been rejected left and right from social connections, for friends, dating, and you see another member with a family, grandkids, it's truly inspirational. And I have some of the, they send me an email saying, thank you so much, because I didn't know that you can drive. I didn't know that you can have a kid. I didn't know that you can have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. I didn't know that you can have friends with this condition. You know? Of course, we also talk about more medically oriented things if you need it, like what do we need to do with medication? What if my daughter wants to go to the OBGYN? Intimate relationships, social skills, coping with disabilities, is driving, etc. And last time that we met with some of the members, there was something that it was really shocking, because we have dedicated a lot of resources on gene therapy, on cardiology, neurology, and dermatology, which is great, but there's some of those things that you cannot change. We have invested a lot of money on things that you cannot change quite rapidly, but we have not invested in mental health, which is something that you can change and improve fairly quickly with significant benefits. For the people that they have, worked with me, or they've been in my talks, or I have one-on-one, they know that changing the mental health it's challenging, yes. But once you challenge that, it opens door to a new world. We also have the patient support, the client support, customer support, member support. We also meet twice, every two months, and we talk about hobbies, the strengths, resiliency, friendship, self-esteem, encourage navigating the mental health system, the social system, interpersonal relationships, and sometimes identity. And it's very casual. It's more about connecting, and some of those group meetings. I mean, it's a safe space, I can say, where you can open your heart, and every single one will be so grateful for all the experience and all the things that you will share, and they take a little bit of that, and they take it home, and they use it to be a better person immediately, pretty much, which is very touching, very rich, and I really like that, and that's why it's important to continue with these kind of groups. What are the next steps? Well, we still need to collect more data about the mental health of Sturge-Weber. As I said, now I have been observing that a lot of kids have the Sturge-Weber and psychosis, which is very rare, but now it tends to be like a trend. I've seen a lot of attention deficit too, a lot of depression and anxiety. But I mean, who's not depressed and anxious in the United States? Pretty much 50% of the adults meet the criteria. I think we still need to do a lot of collaboration with other disciplines, neurology, with imaging, because the more that we can understand the physical part, the biological part, we can start integrating new models of psychiatry into that, in order to have better results. And of course, as scientists, we need to do bigger clinical trials and implement the results as soon as we can. Any questions?
Thanks, Louis.
Question. Oh,
Somebody just wrote in the box, can you explain how closely related Sturge-Weber and KT-Weber? I don't know.
I don't know, to be honest. how related are, but I promise Patty that I will do my research and I can email you back about it. No problem. Thank you. See, if I have an answer, I have it. If not, it's my job to do the research. Any more?
Well, do you guys have like a resource thing where like I'm just wondering like are there like do we have like a list of books or like workbooks or something like that we pass out to people who have been diagnosed like my daughter's class is reading Wonder, which is the okayest book about facial deformities I've ever read. But I just wonder, like, are there books that you think would be good for people you can get like see other people reacting to facial deformities, or what do you think?
Let me think.
Okay. I mean, if we don't have one, maybe we could think about what are some good ones.
No, we don't have one. And I know there is a huge push, more than to talk about the deformities, to reduce the stigma.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you can challenge the stigma, it opens up everything else. And I remember there's some members who are writers who they really are trying to write books from kids about how to accept a Sturge-Weber and how unique is a Sturge-Weber. And they're trying to do it from challenging the stigma point of view. And I think that's the best approach. And I think it's whether you have a Sturge-Weber or psychosis, or it doesn't matter. The stigma is pretty much the one that is holding the identity, the personality, the self-esteem back.
Years ago, wasn't there a book called like Color Me Beautiful?
Yes, we have that coloring book. And we also have been working with Beautifully Blemished, who also has a book. What we can do, and the coloring book is definitely on the website, and looks like Jerry just put it into the in the chat. But what we are going to be doing, and we haven't announced it quite yet, but we are going to be working on a Warrior University. And this is a great topic to have that in. So Kristen, I'm probably going to bother you about that to help me work on that part, because with Louis, because I think it's incredibly important. We got this question actually on Facebook as well this past week, because we're back to school, right? And then October is bullying month too. So, it's definitely coming into that realm of coming from that perspective, but also to have resources to back us up. So I love that question and what we're doing. Ian, if you want my yearly state letters, I write for myself. I can give them to those that are interested, but they can be quite personal. Well, it sounds like Aiden is now going to be working on the mental health side too for us with Warrior University. Be careful what you say in chat. But yes, these are all great ideas, and thank you, Kristen, for bringing it up. And then there's another link as well with Jerry in the chat.
In the books, yeah. Any more questions? Any more comments? As I said, recipes, poems, haikus, they're all welcome.
Yes. And please, 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 I know that we've been putting it out there, and I will get to you, Veronica. I did see your hand go up there. The group chats are not just for patients. Kristen and Teresa have done the patients with Aiden, and they are really a good time. I will tell you, I think they're all heroes. That's what we determined last time on the call. And then on the caregivers, this is our greatest opportunity to chat amongst ourselves. And I will share, and I hope you don't get mad at me for this, but I will share on the last call, I told them that they are superheroes to me and they didn't know why. So I think sometimes, there's that disconnect too. So please come and join us. And I know Yes, to Deb Jagger, yes, the recording will be available on our YouTube channel, because I think it's very important to have it there. So yes. And Veronica, I know you had a question. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't have a particular question about this topic, Dr. Sandoval, but I do want to appreciate every specialist that it has been here in this meeting and all of them that they have been with the Sturge-Weber since the foundation was created. I have deep appreciation for the support that we have received as parents. And as for Luis, Dr. Sandoval, I really would like to particularly appreciate that you have come into the foundation to bring this and offer what you're offering, because it was something that was missing from the very beginning. And I think it's super special. I think it's super important, you know, as important as it is to treat the laser or the glaucoma or something. I think the psychology part of the process of the person with Sturge-Weber as the family is as important. And in our experience, it has been a missing thing that we've been looking for. And basically, we found it when we met you. So I really would like to appreciate that publicly again, and to say that I'm committed to keep working in that group and to support that part as all the others. But I would like to put an emphasis on that, because I think the preserving the self-esteem and the appreciation and of the kids with the person with Sturge-Weber is as important as preserving the physical well-being. And I think it's we need to focus on that. At least that's my goal for my daughter. So it's a huge thank you and a huge appreciation. Of course, I have questions. Of course, I want to talk about everything, but this is just that. So thank you.
Absolutely. No, you're welcome. Yes, Dolores.
Yes, Dr. Sandoval. Again, I want to say what the other lady said. You and Julia, thank you. For me personally, you have done a lot. And so that some other parents understand the fact that my daughter is a 57-year-old woman, but remember, she was also a newborn. And she was born in Cuba, where that was not even heard of. So she was born, and at the beginning, you couldn't even tell the discrepancy in the limbs, because she has like another Patty, I think, mentioned the relation between Klippel-Trenaunay and Weber. So he was not diagnosed until here in 1974. In Jackson Memorial, there was a neurologist, because the pediatrician noticed the discrepancy. We did everything, MRIs, everything at Jackson. And the neurologist at that time said that he thought she had Klippel-Trenaunay Weber, but that was the end of it. What I have found here, and that has been my struggle, is that even doctors, they look at me like, what is that? Or what does he have to do? And now that you mentioned when the gentleman, the other doctor that talked about vascular, you know, thing with the face, is that if anything that happens may not be related for Sturge-Weber.
Correct.
Only psychologically, but I mean, you can have a vascular issue without having Sturge-Weber. You can have many other things. However, I try to mention to every doctor, this is a syndrome she has. Because in this case, and I definitely want, finding the right specialist have been an issue. So I'm going to go to University of Miami and see, because now one of the most, to me, pressing issues is that she has this thing that can be really bad if she doesn't put a stent or the vascular, etc. Now going back to the psychology part, and I'm gonna even expand about psychology and psychiatry, is that I don't think in general society gives it the importance that it is with everything that goes on in society and everything. I don't think we pay that much attention to, because like you said, who's not crazy or having anxiety? And I don't know how the poor young people now, remember, I'm almost antique. So at the time that I grew up, I don't know how the young people nowadays can handle it. It's so stressful. But in my case, because I guess because my daughter grew up, she never, thank God, had seizures, which is more of the obvious. So what is happening now that she's an older person is that she has no insight of what she has. So
Correct.
for her is, oh, mommy, that's my big leg, or this is my fat foot, or this is so. And I have had a hard issue. She would not see a psychologist. She's very difficult because she doesn't get it. Like, psychotherapy that you can have. I go to psychotherapy because I can have a.
Mm-hmm. The
But
outlet.
I
But
don't know
look,
what to tell you.
but look at this. You said she doesn't get it, but I don't think that's her fault. I mean, you have taken your daughter to multiple specialists, and they don't understand. So they haven't been anyone to really digest and communicate what's happening to her at her level of understanding.
I know.
So she doesn't get it because they don't get it. They don't get it. And that's the biggest problem. And I know, I'm pretty sure the Sturge-Weber are going to fire me because I'm too bold and too honest. Neurologists don't get it. Psychologists don't get it. Psychiatrists, they never heard about it. They hear about a case study was fantastic, and they spend, 10 minutes or less. No, they don't get it.
I was
Go ahead,
born
Teresa.
in 1965. I didn't have my real first seizure until September of 2004. And
There you go.
a year later, I had another appointment in a different doctor's office at the same hospital. And the doctor that I saw, they didn't believe I had my first seizure when I was in my 40s. And I said, right away, I did. I have Sturge-Weber, and that's when some seizures come out and all that stuff. And
See?
Well, you were born the same year as my daughter.
Yeah. And I have, as Julie knows, I have a great neurologist, and I can talk to her. She knows all about Sturge-Weber because I brought her the brochures that I get at the conferences and all that stuff. Some people, even though they're in the medical field, they don't know about seizures. They don't know about Sturge-Weber.
I know.
They don't, we're the ones that educate them.
Correct. And that is step one of the mental health task force. You are the experts. You need to help me to educate not only the younger generation of the members, but also the doctors. And on the other side, I'm trying to bring all the science so the doctors can say, oh, this is real. But it's really, really hard to have, to do the science because, as the previous Dr. Neil, I believe, it takes long, it's a lot of money, participation is pretty difficult, but I think we're making progress. If at the end of these mini summits or groups, you feel that you made a friend, or you feel that you connected, you feel that someone can help you to digest the information, that is mental health to its best, because we are connecting, understanding, and walking together in this journey. That's it. That's the best approach.
These mini summits and the last two ones that I've attended, that you have been part of the group of speakers, I've gotten the most because I see that this is what we need. The awareness that now the babies are born, or the babies that have 3 months, 6 months, 6 years, whatever, at least have the benefit that they are going to go directly, even if they have to go to another state, whatever. But some of us that have either the old patients, that are older and never, I think that like my daughter and even myself never thought it was, oh, she has that, that's it, it's going to stay like that. And I think my concern now is that you see that, for example, now you're saying, oh, I had my first seizure. I said, well, maybe I thought she'll never have a seizure. Maybe she will. But even the things that are coming that I see that are happening now, and then I say, but I need to know at least where to take her. Somebody that is not, and I get sometimes very disappointed. And I think it's the problem that we have with medical care in general. The way medical care, I feel for the doctors. Don't take me wrong, but the system is not conducive to a doctor wasting their time trying to, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
There has to be like an effort that you're doing to create some group that is going to realize the same way that you have, I don't know, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, or whatever, that at least there is an awareness. You know what? This group of people, they keep growing because now
And-
there is
And
the
here is
intention.
and here's a commercial, Dolores. Every 2 months, we have a group. If you come and you share this, the community gets stronger and bigger. We started with 3, now we're like 15. We started with some people in the States, now we're internationally. The more that we can share this, the better that we can spread the need and the questions that we all have, but nobody is taking those questions and nobody's answering that. And so what's the point of growing with all these unresolved questions? That's agony, that's stress, that is anxiety, this isolation.
But who do we have to contact? Who has to listen to us?
Well, we can first with each other first.
No, correct.
Questions that I don't know, probably Veronica has the answer, and I know Kristen has plenty answers that she figured it out herself. And if you listen to the journey, it wasn't an easy journey, and I might have some answers, and you might have some answers. If we can figure out the answers here, then we can say to the provider, hey, by the way, don't try this because it doesn't work. Try something different. And that changes the game. That changes the game. As I said, we're waiting for the next, drops to heal the glaucoma. That's amazing. But tomorrow, my daughter is going to college. My daughter is going to elementary school. And what's going to happen? How she's going to deal with bullying? There's no medication to stop bullying. There's no medication to have interpersonal relationship better. There's no medication to tell the or drops to tell the teacher, can you please be more empathetic and sympathetic with my kid? There's no medication for self-esteem, and that happens tomorrow, and it's going to happen on Friday and on Sunday and next week. So that's where I think the resources need to allocate it, because we need to treat these immediate needs in order to hold the fort, because we're the brain of the Sturge-Weber. We're the heart of the Sturge-Weber. Without the brain and the heart, there's no questions. Neurologists cannot work. Ophthalmologists cannot work, because we will never reach to them, because we're so depressed, or self-esteem is so low, we're so isolated. We know, like, we will feel like, why bother? But if we have this strength, we can challenge the psychologist, the social worker, the neurologist, the ophthalmologist. You can challenge anyone. That's your job, and that's our job, to have this dialogue, to create new concepts, new things, new understanding, new treatment, new advancements. But we need to tackle this sooner instead of waiting another couple of years.
You know what?
Right?
Listening to you now, where we can make a difference. I don't know who said we know more sometimes than the doctors would see because we have deal with this every day. I've read everything I can find, etc.
Correct.
Sometimes if you say something to a doctor, not always you have, but sometimes the doctor feel like, oh, don't tell me you saw it in Google or something like that. And I feel like saying, no, I've been dealing with one patient since she was in my belly. So nobody knows more about her than me. And I don't know, you're right, the signs of it. But I know that something is missing, like some, and then what I was thinking before I just very quickly, the same way, look, I'm going to deal now that it looks like I'm going to have to deal with Parkinson's disease myself. So can you imagine? At my age, and so I need a psychiatrist. But anyway, you have neurologists that are specializing in this disease, as I remember, who takes care of these.
Sure.
Why don't we create like a group, like now, in my case, the KT, but there are other, I don't know how to call it, neurogenetic something.
Right.
So that we have more strength or more resources to get to where we need to get.
Let me finish with this comment. You said, what's missing? Why doctors cannot do this or they have advanced it? What's missing? Your voice. In mental health, we have to do it backwards. If you have been in therapy, if the client or the patient don't talk, the doctor doesn't know anything. Right? In cardiology, you don't need to talk. I could use my devices, plug it in, listen, check. Yeah, an arrhythmia here. Right? Ophthalmology, you don't need to talk. I just look at that. In mental health, if you don't talk, we don't know what's going on. You want to tell the clinicians what's going on in any discipline, raise your voice.